live and do some Monday Soul Deliciousness. So I'm just going to give you a second to hop on, try to get my stupid selfie light that I don't like to work. I need to go back to my closet. That's where I felt like so, like I had it all together when I was doing my lives from my closet, honestly. All right. Let me just turn my phone off. So while you guys are hopping on, I want to show you something so cool. So I found this beautiful Etsy site that I don't even remember what it's called. So maybe it's on here. No, probably not, right? Let me see. Let me find it for you. Okay, I think it's on this. Okay, it's called World Incense Store. And this is in Fort Myers, Florida. And it is owned by a family. And so I got these on Etsy. I have never been one to collect stones or anything like that. And so as I've been doing energy healing and I realized that I could tap into some really cool benefits from using stones and crystals and clearing chakras, I decided to get myself some. So I bought a couple. I talked about one the other morning, one of my favorites, right? This is my Peacock Stone. I don't know what in the crap is going on with my camera. This is my Peacock Stone, which I love because it is kind of a turquoise with gold in it. I know it's hard for you to see, but it is one of my faves. So love that. And then when I found this website, I had to, I was buying some specific ones for chakra clearing and chakra balancing. So I got this beautiful, beautiful amethyst. There's a whole bunch of stuff. But anyways, this one was like the, hey, I'm a unicorn and I just need this stone. I have no idea what it is or what it represents or any of its possible functions. But I was like, I have to have it. So I bought it. It's pretty freaking spectacular. And I am going to show it to you. And let's see, because somebody's going to want to know what it's called. That is not it. I think it's on this one. I don't know. Way to go. I thought it was actually on my bubble wrap, but it is not. So I don't know what it's called. Anyway, look how cool this is. I don't know how well I moved my thing. So hold on. I don't know how well you can even see this. I have something covering my screen, so I can't see you guys now. Okay. It's so cool. You can't tell. Oh yeah, you kind of can. Right? What kind of unicorn loving crazy person doesn't need one of these? I do, for sure. So I'm in love with it. If you really want to know what it is, you can message me and I'll tell you, because I thought I brought the receipt in here and I don't want to go on Etsy and look it up, but it's so cool. All right, so we are going to talk about something really cool. And for today's little soul deliciousness, I have, I think I titled this when I first put it up as an event, that it was going to be basically based off of giving someone else your keys to your happiness, which it is. But then as I was doing this, I came across this really delicious book and I bought it. And then I started reading it. And then I was like, ooh, I'm going to do tonight's session on a first part of this and probably next week's session on another little bit of it. So let me show you this super cool book. So, you know, and I'm really not good at pronouncing people's names. So I would have been one of those teachers that couldn't say your name right, even if your name was Sarah. So this is a book by Gabrielle Bernstein. Probably I got that right. It's pretty. Anyways, it's called Judgment Detox. So I am going to talk about this a little bit and some of the really cool things in her book. I just probably bought this. Yes, I did. I bought this on Amazon. Okay, that's where I get all my books. But so I have no idea if it's on Audible or Kindle or any of that stuff. But I wanted to talk to you about, as I started reading, right? I started reading the first part of it. I was like, does this book resonate with me? And do I want to continue reading it? Is basically how that goes down. So it aligned with exactly what I was talking about tonight. So I wanted to use this as our little thing. So I did title this Giving Someone the Responsibility of Your Happiness. And then I dove a little deeper and got way, way, way deeper. Okay. So here's this crazy thing that happened. And as I started reading her book and I was reading the first of it, I was like, oh my word, I've never even thought about it like this. By the way, I'm 100% sure that I can see no one posting anything. So if you're saying something to me, just know that I love you, but my stream is not showing me any of your comments. And so therefore, just know that I love you. And if you're saying hello, I say hello back. All right, there we go. Okay, so let's talk about this. We tend to give people the keys to our happiness, people that we respect, because we have them on a little bit of what we'll call a pedestal. So for a lot of us, sometimes that's a parent, sometimes it's a friend, sometimes it's our kids, sometimes it's our spouse. But we want these people to, we have these expectations for these people, but we want them to meet that expectation. So what happens when they don't meet our expectation? Something really not good, right? If I think my parents should react a certain way, if I think my friend should react a certain way, if I think my spouse should react a certain way, and my kids should react a certain way, the problem is that every single one of these people shares one really common thing, and that is that they are human beings, right? So the problem is when we put the ability for us to feel happy on someone else, ultimately, eventually, they're going to disappoint you because they're a human being and it's impossible for them to do everything and set themselves up to this level of expectation that you've created for them. So then you are let down by them. Okay. And now here comes the key word. And this is what we're really going to wrap ourselves around tonight. You start judging them. Okay. And it creates this really obnoxious cycle. And that's what this book is about. Okay. And she goes in, she tells you some steps to stop doing this. And so I'm going to really dig into this and I'm going to talk about this book again next week when I do this. But here's what she talks about. And it's so key on, right? So I give someone else the ability that I'm basing how I feel off of the expectations that I give to someone else. And they're a human being. And so then when they crash and burn, they let me down. And then I start judging them because they didn't fulfill my expectation. Then I start judging myself because I trusted them. And then I start judging myself for judging them. And it becomes a really big cycle. Meditate on that for a minute. Sometimes when I'm working with clients, I'm like, marinate on that. I know, marinate your little brain in there. So I'm going to tell you it again. You set someone up to make yourself happy because you give them an expectation. So I want my child to pass a test. So I set them up that I want them to get this great grade. And then they don't because they're a human being and they don't study. So now they've let me down. I start being judgmental about my own kid. Why did they not pass the test? Why did they not listen to me? Whatever. So then I'm also judging myself because in sometimes when we borrow money to people or whatever, we even do this by judging, like, why did I trust that they could be better when I know, right? I know they couldn't. Anyways, then we start feeling guilty because then we're like, wait, why am I judging my kid? Maybe they didn't pass the test because blah, 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 blah. Maybe it's my fault. You just get into this really detrimental, insane cycle. And it's called the judgment cycle. So why do we judge other people? Well, in most cases, it's because we want to isolate our own selves from feeling pain or feeling unworthy about our own self. So if I project that onto someone else, it makes me feel better about myself. It's way easier for me. We're going to use a really simple one. It's way easier for me to be walking into a store and pass someone that is overweight and pass judgment on them for their weight than to look at my own issues with weight, right? It's way easier when I look at someone else and I'm like, ooh, right? or I look at another parent and I look at their children and then I start passing judgment on them because I think their kids don't look like they're taken care of well enough, their hair's not done, whatever. But really, I'm in fear of my own weight. I'm in fear of how I look. I'm in fear of how I'm taking care of my kids myself. So then I start judging them. Then I start judging myself. And you just get into this pattern. And it's a really, really super ugly pattern. Hey, if you guys are just hopping on, by the way, I cannot see anybody's chat. So I have no idea what any of you are saying. And I guess I could open up Facebook in another window and see if I can see you. So let's do that. Okay. Now, this is the one that ultimately burns and chaps my hide the most. And you know what? As I tell you all of this, I'm guilty as charged as well. I have to work on this myself because, and I'll tell you how I do it here in a second. I'm just pulling this up to see if I can see your comments. So think about this one. Gossiping. Okay. Gossiping is literally the ultimate way that people, the ultimate way that people get high off of judging. You literally start gossiping, and then we think we're bonding with people. I don't know, like my Facebook page isn't even working, so I can't see it even on Facebook. Whatever. Technology. So you think you're bonding with someone because you're gossiping, you're talking about someone else, and you're like, oh, you know, you're all friendship. But really, what are you doing? You're just getting a collection of people together so that you can focus on creating someone else's pain. Now, as a practitioner that deals with energy, I 100% can tell you that you don't think that you're hurting anyone when you're talking negatively or emitting negative energy if you're behind closed doors. That's a complete lie. So we have absolutely got the ability to affect other people by our thoughts, just as much as our actions and just as much as what we say. Energy has no limits. Sitting behind a closed door talking poorly about someone does not stop that negative energy from emulating from your body and traveling to the intent of the person that you're thinking about. That is just how that goes. So people get high off of gossip because you're allowing other people, right, to participate in judgment and comments, which are things that you are fearing yourself. So if you can get other people on board with it, then you're just adding to the fact that now you're justifying that your thoughts and actions. And so, you know, we're basically judging through gossiping and unjudging how we feel about ourselves when we can get someone else to think about it too. So I'm going to repeat that one too, because it's a little bit deeper and hard to wrap your head around. So if I get a group of people together, right? Let's say that I decide to talk poorly about one of my friends, but I'm basically having this conversation with myself, right? So now, if I can get other people to do it with me, I don't judge myself as harshly for talking bad about someone. Because if I just kind of do it with myself, then I have a little bit more of the ability to be like, whoa, I shouldn't be negatively talking about this person. That's not right, right? But if I get other people around me to do it too, I'm less likely to look at it as I'm doing something wrong because they're doing it too. So, right? I'm not really judging myself as bad. The more that we repeat a process, right, the more that it becomes a habit. And that habit of us judging starts to be the way that we believe. And then the problem with that is when we're always thinking about something, a belief is basically just something that you keep thinking. It truly is. We believe a certain thing because that is the way that we keep thinking. So think about that on a level of when someone introduces you to a new concept or a new topic or a new way to learn something. Because it's not the way that you've thought previously, you don't always accept it right away. If you're the type of person that has the ability to sit back and think, okay, I'm going to think about this for a minute and I'm actually going to give it some, you know, potential that it could be legit, it could be real, it could be something. And I let myself think about it for a minute. Even then, it takes a little bit of wrapping your head around, right? Because that's not what I've always believed. And a belief is simply something that you keep on thinking. Now, that's exactly why when you are surrounding yourself with lots of coaches, practitioners, people that are manifesting, right? It's why they tell you to keep repeating your thoughts, is because a belief is just a thought that you keep thinking over and over again. So when I start clearing out the negative thoughts that I think all the time and I replace them with a positive thought, it becomes my belief. So sure, at first it's difficult, right? Because you're like, because you don't believe what you're saying. So if I wake up every morning and I'm like, I'm beautiful. I'm beautiful. I love the way that I look, right? It takes a little while for that to become a belief because that's changing the way that you've been thinking. Okay? Now, one of the big problems when we go around judging everyone all day and judging ourselves, because that's naturally what we're doing when we're judging someone else. We actually are a mere reflection of what we're judging in our own selves. We tend to live in this state where we feel very unsafe. We feel very under attack and we feel very defensive. So let's say that I decide to wear something to Walmart that is maybe something that I didn't even realize that I left the house in. Okay. So for me, this would be like a typical normal everyday outfit because I wear my pajama pants everywhere I go. But let's say that you're horrified to go out in public in your pajama pants and you wear your pajama pants to Walmart. All right. You realize when you get there, but now you're 35 minutes away from your house. You realize when you get there that you're wearing your pajama pants and now you start having anxiety and you're freaking out because you're like, I'm going to have to go into Walmart. I'm not going to drive all the way back home. I'm just going to go in there and shop. You start to feel unsafe. You start to feel under attack and you start to feel defensive. Why? Because if you saw someone else wearing this outfit, you would be judging them the exact same way that you're judging yourself. Therefore, you are under the impression and projecting the fact that when you walk into Walmart, people are going to think and judge you the same exact way that you are judging yourself. I have been super bad in the past of assuming that other people are thinking the worst of me or thinking something really bad about me when in reality they really weren't, because I was judging other people so much that that was a reflection back on myself. So I just assumed that they must be thinking the worst about me as well. That is not a good place to live. That is a horrible spot to live in. You feel so defensive all the time that even when someone tries to have a healthy relationship with you or tries to communicate with you, you become very defensive with everything because you're always waiting for that next blow. That person must be going to find you as unworthy as you find yourself. And so you self-sabotage, and then people just don't want to be around you because you're just not a good energy fit for them. And they're feeling that judgment that you're giving off. Okay. Now, when we're judging ourselves and we're judging other people, which those two go hand in hand, you are not living in a space of love. You're not living in a space of having a healthy relationship with yourself. You're not living in a space where you're vibrating on these beautiful levels, right? I show you this book all the time. I don't even know where it is. Power versus Force, right? If you've watched me before, you know this is one of those books where you read it and you're like, what? Because it's very, he writes in a very, I would say, if I were to just pick a word, I would say engineering mindset. Like it's a little bit of a difficult read. So this is one of those where you just pick it up and you read it a few times, right? And when I scribble all over and highlight everything, but the one really cool thing that's super easy to find in the back of this is his like map of consciousness. And it tells you about all these different vibrations. And he actually has a log, which is a measurement. Okay. And I've showed this before, but if you find it like at the very top, you have enlightenment, peace, joy, and love. And then the very bottom, so just to give you an idea, enlightenment, which, right, that would be you're pure conscious, you're totally in a spot of fulfilled enlightenment. You're not judging people. Like you're just like super happy, right? I would basically call you a unicorn at this point. So that's between a 700 to 1,000 is what that's measured in. Whereas guilt is at 30. Shame is at 20. Fear is at 100. All right. Anger is at 150. So there you can see, like that's what he's talking about in that book is, and when we vibrate with love, joy, happiness, peace, there's more than just the fact that I feel good. I feel good to other people, right? When they're around me, they're like, "Ooh, I like that. Your energy feels beautiful." When you're vibrating on these other fear, shame, all those things that I just told you about, what are those connected to? Judgment. So when we're continually running around judging everyone else and judging ourselves, and we're living in fear because we're afraid for ourselves, we feel unsafe, we feel attacked, we feel so defensive because if I look at someone else and you're wearing pajama pants into Walmart and I'm like, wow, you loser, why are you dressed like that? What am I just saying to myself? If I do something like that, I'm judging who I am too, because I'm holding myself up to this expectation of this level that there's a certain way to go into Walmart and shop. And now I'm actually self-reflecting and feeling really kind of guilty that I'm judging someone else. It's just an ugly, ugly cycle. And so you want to get out of that, because here's the problem. When we vibrate on these lower levels, fear, shame, anger, all of those icky things, we create problems for our body. Absolutely proven. Go grab that book. Measurements of the body when you are living in a state of fear, shock, shame, whatever all those things are, traumas, your body's cell vibration is very low. And when your body's cell vibration is low, guess what that leads to, right? We don't feel good. We start getting sick. We feel ill all the time. We don't have any energy, right? So sometimes when a client comes to me and they're like, I've got all these symptoms and I don't know what's going on. There are some people that I know right away because I can tell by the way they're talking to me about their life, they have zero gratitude for anything. So in all reality, there are some times when I work with someone, and I'll just call it, I was talking to another practitioner and I loved what she said. She called it a personality vibration. And I loved it. Oh, hey, Amber, I actually just saw what you said. Yes, depression is on the lower vibrating level. Right? And as far as depression goes, like all of these things cause you to feel depressed. But part of the reason that we get depressed is because we're judging ourselves, because we're not living up to an expectation, right? That we think that we should be at. So sometimes when I look at, if you're reflecting on your own life and you're like, well, I don't have the job that I wanted, I don't have whatever that I wanted, right? And it's just chaos. And we live in a state of anxiety causes depression. There's so many lower vibrating frequencies that cause us to go into this state of depression, which in and of itself is a low vibrating place to be. So we create this cell damage and then we start getting sick and we go to the doctor and we're like, I don't feel good. And what's going on with me? And then we just compound the problem because now we start in Western medicine, we're chasing symptoms. We're just chasing symptoms. And then a doctor gives me some kind of diagnosis. And now I'm hell bent that I have this. And so now I'm going to go on Google, and every single symptom that I Google, I now have because I'm certain that this is what I've got. And we just create this mental catastrophe for ourselves. And so that's why we want to stay away from these lower vibrating levels. And being judgmental is one of the ways to get yourself there, lickety split, really. So there comes a point when I work with a client and, they have this personality vibration. And if we're meeting every week and I'm like, okay, this is what you got to focus on. Like, I'm going to do all my little hocus pocus, almajocus, and I'm going to help clear stuff out from your subconscious. But I need you to take some steps to start thinking about what you're thankful for. I don't even care if you're thankful for the fact that you have a clear esophagus and you can drink water. Seriously, be grateful at that type of a level. I'm grateful that I don't have oxygen right now, that I'm not on a ventilator. I'm grateful that I have hair on my head. I'm grateful that I have a t-shirt on. I'm grateful that I have the ability to go to the bathroom without having someone wipe me. I mean, honestly, find something to be grateful for. And if I'm with a client and they're like, I can't think of anything, and we do this over and over for a few sessions, guess what happens? Then Miss AJ, the crazy, is like, yeah, until you can figure out how to start cognitively vibrating on a higher space by finding some gratitude for something, we will never be able to get anywhere. And I don't want to waste my time with you when there is another person that really can benefit from this. And I know that's harsh, right? I'm probably the harshest energy healer in the world. And I'm okay with that because I'm not here to sugarcoat things for people. It's just not who I am. So getting out of a space of judgment, finding a space where you can feel gratitude for things. You can't feel gratitude and vibrate on a lower level. It is impossible. So when I start getting myself into these bad spaces, gratitude is the number one spot that I go to. But I'm also going to tell you how to break through from this judgment cycle. And I really want to dive into this book a little more. And to be honest with you, I haven't gotten through all the pages yet, but I'm probably going to continue on some of this next week. So how do I stop myself from judging other people, right? Because come on, it's super easy to do, right? We're born these beautiful little inner children. We have our little inner child and we're deliciously happy, right? And I mean, this is my inner child back here. This whole 8-foot shelf, that's my inner child. And people are like, what is this? That's my inner child, okay? Because I like it. It makes me happy. Like when I'm a little kid and I have all these little fun things. And so I feed my inner child. I thrive with my inner child. I love who she is. I love the little girl with pigtails that I hated when I was growing up. I learned to love her as an adult because I realized that every stupid thing that every person used to tell me about myself that wasn't positive, do you know what I realized? Those are my best attributes. Those are my best attributes. Being completely opinionated and not being a person that just doesn't sit back and take things. Do you know what I realized? That's just an amplified thing that I need to bring down. And then it becomes a super positive attribute for me. So I love it. I love who I was as a kid now, but I hated myself back then, which is sad because people taught me past agreements and I believed them. So you grow up learning how to be judgmental because you were judged yourself by everyone, by your parents, by your siblings. I don't care if you have the nicest parents in the whole world, guaranteed they judged you and they taught you how to judge other people. They taught you how to judge yourself every time they held you up to an expectation that you didn't make it to, right? And that's the problem. So now here we are in this space. And so we're the masters. We're the masters, the ultimate judgers. How do you stop yourself from doing that? So this is what I do. When I start to find myself judging someone else, okay, because keep in mind, I don't care what you think. There's a true statement here that what we dislike in others is a reflection of something in ourselves that we don't like or is from a deep unhealed wound. So you might be judging someone else because of something that someone else did to you, right? So we have to kind of let all that go. So we don't want to judge people because we end up in that cycle. So here's what I say to myself. When I start seeing someone and I catch myself being judgmental, I stop and I say, why do you care? That's kind of a like slap in the face, right? Let's go back to the Walmart example. I'm walking in Walmart and I see someone that I was taught, mind you, right? Because how do you think you have an opinion of how someone's dressed and how they should be or shouldn't be dressed? Because you were taught that. Someone in your past taught you that a certain outfit was immodest. Someone in your past taught you that you can't wear pajama pants to out in public because that's not appropriate. All right. You were taught this by someone at some point in your life. So step back. I'm walking into Walmart and I see someone dressed in a certain way. And I'm like, catch myself being somewhat judgmental. Whoa. Why do you care? Why do I care? I don't. Like what? Honestly, why do I care what you're wearing into Walmart? Because I'm judging myself. That's why. Because I've been taught that what you're wearing isn't appropriate. I'm judging you and now I'm judging myself. Like, I don't care. I don't care how you're acting unless you're hurting someone else. Like, right? I'm not going to stand by and watch you like beating the crap out of someone in a parking lot because that's not. But if you are doing something and it is not affecting anyone else around you, I don't care what you're doing. I really don't. And ask yourself that. When you go to judge someone, seriously sit back and be like, why do I care? You see someone else buy something and you're like, they can't afford that. Why do you care? I mean, we've all been guilty of that one, right? You watch someone in your family or someone that and you know financially they might be distraught and you're like freaking out and you're calling someone and you're like, guess what so and so just did? Blah, blah, blah. Dave and Amy, they just bought this house, right? Why do you care? You don't. You shouldn't. It actually has nothing to do with you. If you are not now, okay, I know there's a couple of you on there that are like, well, wait a minute, because if so and so does this, and even in this instance, we can turn this around. But if you're like, well, if so and so does this, then I have to pay for it because they're not responsible, and then I have to bail them out. Actually, do you? You're judging them, but you're the one that's deciding to bail them out. I mean, realistically, when it comes down to it, unless they're, living in your home and they're 6, but then, 6-year-olds don't usually do things that are like that. Do you really? You're financially giving, your 20-year-old cousin money, and then you're like, well, yeah, I do care what they're doing because if they don't do this, then I'm the one that gave them the money. Well, a couple of things here. Self-reflect for a second. Number one, you chose to not have a boundary and you chose to give them the money. So now don't hold them up to an expectation because now you're getting into the judgment cycle because they're a human being. What are the chances? Repetitive behavior. What are the chances that that person is potentially not going to follow through with what they said? Pretty high. So if you don't want to get yourself into that situation, then don't be giving anyone money that there is a gigantic potential that you're never going to get back, right? Because then you're in the judgment cycle and you can't be in the why do I care? So if you're going to give someone money, you need to have beforehand the I don't care if you don't pay me back and I don't care what you do with it, or don't be giving them money, okay? So that's the first one, is I sit back and think, I don't care. Why do I care? I don't care what you're doing. You are not affecting me, so I do not care what you are doing. If you want to dig up your whole yard, that has nothing to do with my yard, right? I don't care what you're doing. So you stop judging people when you really just sit back and you're like, I really don't care. This is not me. Now, second one that I do, looking at other people. We are taught that anyone that's outside of the box, anyone who decides to color the snowman orange is a weirdo. All right. And that's a past agreement that we've been told. So-and-so is weird because she does this, right? So-and-so is, for the crying out loud, I'm 41 years old and I'm wearing a freaking piece of chocolate on my shirt. Okay. I'm sure there are people that are like, you can't do that. Why? Why can't I? Because at some point someone told you or made you think that I'm a weirdo, right? I have a whole shabacle of weird freaking stuff in my office that some people don't understand. And so to them, that would be Amy's weird. My kid today went into my office at work and I looked at him and said, is there any doubt in your mind that this is my office? And he said, no, not at all, right? Because you walk in and my personality screams at you just like it does in my office at home. And that's what my kid said. He's like, there is no difference between your office at work and your office at home. The only difference here is that your office at work is smaller, so you don't have as much stuff in it. And I was like, yep, but pretty much. So I used to do this. I looked at other people and I'm like, whoa, you weirdo, right? And then I started judging. And then what do? We vibe at a lower level. So if I looked at a person and their hair was crazy, or maybe they were dressed, let's just use goth, right? Because that's just kind of what pops up into my head. So I was taught as a kid by someone, I don't know who, right, that there's something weird. If you're wearing all black and your face is pasty white, like you're weird, right? I'm sure I got this from my parents, or because I live in a very religious community where having a tattoo is very taboo. I was taught if a person has a tattoo, like that is very much a, they're wild. They're probably doing things that are wrong. Like I absolutely had it in my head that growing up, that if a person had a tattoo, that they weren't making good choices. And that's obviously some stupid crap thing that someone put into my head, that I then become very judgmental for people. And I remember being with a family member, and we were doing something, shopping at a market or somewhere. And there was a mom, and she had a little girl that was probably like 2 or something. And the mom had a tank top on, and she, actually, I don't think she had a tank top on. I think she had a normal t-shirt on, but she had a full tattoo across her collarbone and upper neck, if I recall right. And I remember my family member making a comment about it. And they said something like, wow, I bet her daughter's really proud to be seen with her mom. And I was like, what? What? Right? So talk about having judgmental. And if you think about it, it's a total reflection back on the person saying that. Are you really that insecure with yourself that you have to say a comment like that about someone else in public? Basically, you just implied that they are a bad mother. So are you really having some shame and guilt about the type of mom that you are, to the point where you actually have to call that out on someone else so that you can feel better about yourself? That's exactly what that is. It's a projection. Okay. So not only do I think to myself, why do I care? Because why do I? Why do I care if you have a tattoo? I don't. You know, I don't care any different than what color of eyeshadow you're wearing. Like, it doesn't matter to me. I don't care anymore about what you know, but people do this too. Like, you watch someone eat and you're like, ooh, right. I've put ketchup on chicken before and had people freaking out. And I'm like, why do you care? You're not freaking eating it. I am. It just doesn't matter. So this is the second one that I do. I look at other people, and if I initially have a thought of that is weird, I'm like, own it. Yes, you are. I look at someone, if I have that thought of you, they are a little weird. No, own it. Be proud of it. Be proud of who you are. That's what I think to myself. Okay. Because all of these things reflect back on you and how you judge yourself. It goes back to that judgment cycle that I told you about at the very beginning, right? It becomes this massive cycle. You're judging other people, and realistically, it's a mirror image of you're judging yourself. And then you're living in fear, you're living in defensiveness, you're living in, I have to protect myself, I have to defend who I am because I'm so judgmental of everyone else. And you ultimately live in this space where you really dislike who you are, but you project that on other people. So when I sit around somewhere and I see or start hearing a bunch of people gossiping, then I'm like, you guys all hate yourselves. Like, that's why you're talking so poorly about other people, is because you were so insecure with yourself that you actually have to gather a group of people around so that you can have judgment together, so that you feel justified in being able to say what you're saying. It's actually the company that I work for now. We have an HR lady, and she said it beautifully once when she was doing, I'm sure she didn't mean it to be beautifully, but it was. She was doing orientation, and I'll never forget. She said something along the lines of, even if you know, she was implying, workplace gossip. And she said, it doesn't matter if you're gossiping and you're saying something untrue or you're saying something true. She said it along the lines of that. And it was a while ago, so, don't quote me on that. But she basically said, it doesn't even matter if it's true, because some people are like, well, it's true, so that's not gossip, right? She said this simple word. If it doesn't benefit someone and it isn't positive, then it doesn't need to be said. And I was like, wow, that's pretty straightforward. And I thought about it a lot, obviously, because I'm still remembering it. And this was 5 years ago. And I thought, she's so right. Even if I do know it's true, if it's not benefiting someone else and it's not positive, it doesn't need to be said. And that puts the block on judging other people too, right? I don't need to get into a group of people and talk all about how, Joe at work did this or whatever, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. I'm not Joe. Joe's not affecting me. I don't need to get other people on board to have a gigantic negative festival to produce negative vibes and send those out, and also because, believe in karma. I totally believe that those things come back to us. So How does that come back to us in karma? Well, when we're vibrating on this lower level, we're gossiping and we're invoking fear ourselves because, wow, if everybody's willing to sit around and talk so poorly about Lisa, what do you think happens when you leave the room? They have no hesitation talking about you, and you know that. So then you start judging yourself. And we're once again down at this bad vibrating level, and karma bites you in the butt because now your cells are not healthy. You have the potential to become sick. You have the potential to not feel well. You have the potential to just turn into this chronic mess, right? All right, you guys. That's what I'm going to leave you with tonight. Thanks for hopping on. I love you muches. You can share the video. It enters you to win socks. So please do so. If you do share it, type shared. We're giving away some socks on Friday, some cool little shocky shamrock socks. There you go. All right, I get to do homework. Love the vase. I know, can you see it? So Kizzy is my cousin, so she's really involved in understanding this vase. So it's pretty cool. Okay, you guys, I hope you have a fantastic night. Thanks for hopping on for my Monday Soul Deliciousness on this beautiful 1st of March. And I hope you have a fantastic night and I get to do some homework.